Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is Francesca Albanese. She's the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the Palestinian territories, and she joins us from Ariano Irpino in Italy. Welcome to the show.
Merci à vous.
Thank you so much.
War has been raging in Gaza for over a year now. Already back in March, in a report to the UN Human Rights Council, you said that what is happening there amounts or resembles a genocide. This is fiercely denied by Israel, of course, but after a year, are you confirming that it is indeed a genocide unfolding in Gaza?
Tout à fait, Marc. Dans les 6 mois
Absolutely, Mark.
suivant la remise de mon rapport,
In the 6 months since I submitted my report
je continue
to the Human Rights Council, I have continued to investigate what is happening in the occupied Palestinian territories, mainly in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And next week, I will be presenting another report to the United Nations in New York City, which will confirm what I've said. This is genocide. And I have no doubt about it. I want to say that this analysis is now shared by several independent UN experts, as well as academics, historians, even Israelis and non-governmental organizations. What is happening in Gaza? And sadly, we have a pretty good idea of the terror inflicted upon the Palestinians of Gaza day after day. What is happening in full view of the whole world. I use the term sadly because we can't cop out and pretend not to know what's going on. And that's very serious. Even without calling them genocide, the crimes taking place in Gaza and the consequences of those crimes are unfolding right before our eyes. What's shocking is the death of 42,000 people, 17,000 of them children. We've got doctors returning from Gaza report children shot to the head or chest. And there are tens of thousands of children who've been amputated without anesthesia. Children who are now disabled as a result of this war. And yet, in the face of all this, we still hesitate to condemn and put an end to what Israel is doing, even though the International Court of Justice recommended back in July that Israel cease its illegal occupation as soon as possible.
Israel vividly denies any intent to annihilate an ethnic group, in that case the Palestinians. Israel claims it is waging war against Hamas in Gaza, now against Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's not against a people, but against a terrorist groups that have killed and continue to do so.
Allow me to reject this qualification because I do not think that the Israelis, or rather the Israeli government, denies this qualification of genocide. Not only have they been making genocidal remarks, for the past year, they've been claiming that all Palestinians in Gaza are responsible for what happened on October 7th. They've been calling them animals and Amalekites. And that's a biblical reference made by Netanyahu a year ago, a biblical reference which countless others have borrowed. The Israelis are attacking the Palestinians in every territory, not just in Gaza, but the West Bank as well. And they make no secret that their goal is to depopulate Gaza so that it can be reoccupied. We've got members of the Israeli government saying that, as well as hardline, extremely violent Israeli settlers. Why doesn't the international community question what Israel is doing? From a material point of view, Israel has unleashed dread and destruction on Gaza for the past year. How can any government, how can any state be allowed to do that? It's terrifying. Mark, if I were to summarize the paradox that we are in, We want to see what we believe instead of believing what we see.
Israel claims that Hamas is using civilians as human shields, using homes, hospitals, schools, mosques, United Nations structures. Are you denying this, that Hamas is using the civilians to make sure Israel is condemned for the crimes you described? Or is it wrong?
You know what? This human shield defense is an old chestnut. There's nothing new in the Israeli-Palestinian context. This cannot be used as a blanket argument to cover up and to justify attacks on civilian populations that are disproportionate and indiscriminate. Proof must be provided, and Israel has yet to provide any evidence to support this argument. But even if there were proof, even then, you cannot destroy whole towns. You cannot destroy entire districts, raze hospitals to the ground. People cannot be stripped of their protected status as civilians. What Israel has been doing since October 7th last year, what they've been doing flies in the face of international law as a source of protection for civilians. We live in a world today where there are no civilians left, not in Gaza, not in the West Bank, not in Lebanon.
The elimination of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, is it good news for you?
Whether good news or bad news, my analysis of the world is based on the categories of international law. I would have liked to see Haniyeh, Sinwar, and Deif appear before the International Criminal Court alongside the Israeli leaders for whom prosecutor Karim Khan has applied to the ICC for arrest warrants. I want justice to be served. I expect it to be served. Clearly, Sinwar was a military target, and I find it interesting. Who could have imagined 6 months ago that today he would be eliminated? And the way that he was killed was rather inhumane. To my mind, that is not justice. Israel used force. It was a violent attack against a target. So yes, Sinwar was a target. Sinwar is an individual who had committed crimes and ordered crimes against Israeli civilians, but he should have been tried. He should have been brought to justice.
You recently said Israel was becoming a pariah state, and you even question whether Israel should still be part of the United Nations. Why exclude Israel? Why not the Syria of Bashar al-Assad or Afghanistan under the Taliban?
Well, according to reports from the United Nations, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, or even other independent sources, there isn't a single member state or country today that doesn't commit violations of international law. It's sad, but true. The State of Israel, on the other hand, has been doing it systematically. This is a state that has repeatedly violated international law, including resolutions passed by the UN General Assembly, the Security Council, the Human Rights Council, and decisions of the International Court of Justice ever since its creation. Under Article 6 of the United Nations Charter, Israel qualifies as a serial violator of international law. Therefore, I recommend reconsidering Israel's membership, reconsidering Israel's admission to the United Nations General Assembly under Article 6, particularly in light of what I call its genocidal conduct. We need to take a step back from what happened. And I have no doubt that historians will prove us right. The thing is, I refuse to wait for history to prove us right. I want to save lives, whether Palestinian or Israeli lives, and we cannot allow a state to continue to act with total impunity.
I want to get to some declarations you made that caused a lot of controversy, not only in Israel, not only in the United States, but also in Europe and in France. On October the 14th, you reacted to Germany's decision to ship weapons to Israel. You made a historical parallel. I quote you, "Our collective obliviousness to what led 100 years ago to the Third Reich expansionism and the genocide of people not in conformity with the pure race is stupid, and it is leading to the commission of yet another genocide and potentially a global war. Shame on all those who are making this happen." After that, the French mission to the United Nations issued a press release deeming your comments unacceptable. It asked the UN Human Rights Council to draw all the consequences. Aren't you going too far in drawing some of the parallels you're making? And do you think some countries are trying to push you out of your job?
Needless to say, the truth is scandalous. The truth is a revolutionary act in the face of politicians who go out of their way to avoid applying international law. I would like to put this question to France. What is the French government doing to comply with the decision of the International Court of Justice ordering Israel to dismantle the settlements and end the occupation as soon as possible and stop exploiting the natural resources that belong to the Palestinians, including in the occupied Palestinian territories? What is France doing? That's the question France must answer. It's easy to be offended. It's easy to favor a solution based on implementing the fundamental principles of international law. It's easy to talk about humanity, but do we realize that 17,000 children have been killed? Is it right to continue to talk politics? Is it right to continue to pontificate over what others are saying while shirking our obligations? That's the question we must ask the French government today.
So you're not going to resign?
Of course not.
Thank you very much, Francesca Albanese, for appearing on this show, and thank you all for watching it. Stay tuned for more news here on France 24. Sur nos antennes.